Welcome to This Week, a weekly look back on the news from the past week. My name is Tony of the Underpaid Gamers. This week, we are looking at November 13th. The Golden Joystick Awards celebrated their 35th running. Most of these awards are voted on by the public. Game of the Year was won by Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In a close second was Horizon Zero Dawn and Persona 5 as third. Critics' Choice went to Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's voted on only by the critics, no public input. Best Story was won by Horizon Zero Dawn. Most Anticipated Game, The Last of Us Part 2, narrowly beat out Red Dead Redemption 2 and Spider-Man PS4. And Breath of the Wild went home with 4 awards, and so did Horizon Zero Dawn with another 4 awards. In Hollywood, there was a new Deadpool 2 trailer, or the first Deadpool 2 trailer, for the new, officially titled, Untitled Deadpool sequel. Releasing on June 1st of 2018, the movie was moved from winter to summer as that generates more sales. It's directed by David Leitch. Ryan Reynolds reprises his role as Deadpool, and Josh Brolin was signed on as Cable. We got our first look at The Incredibles 2, featuring Jack and all of his powers. This is going to take place immediately after the first one, where the first one ended, even though there's a 10-year span from the actual movie releases. This one will take place right afterwards. Again, a summer 2018 release. There have been allegations raised against Brett Ratner and his production company Rat Pack Dune, so much so that Gal Gadot says she will not be in Wonder Woman 2 if Brett Ratner is still attached to the project. Patty Jenkins is still the director, and Wonder Woman 2 is scheduled to release actually 6 weeks earlier on November 1st of 2019. As of now, DC has cut their ties with Brett Ratner. If you wanted more Lord of the Rings, you are in luck. Amazon has purchased a multi-season deal for Amazon Prime to release a TV series of Lord of the Rings that takes place before the movies and before The Hobbit.
My friends. You bow to no one.
New releases of this week include The Punisher release on Netflix. This is the 7th in the series of the Marvel Netflix shows. This features the anti-hero that we all came to know and love in the 2nd season of Daredevil. Justice League was released on November 17th, featuring the first live-action team-up of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash. It did not turn out all that well. It was a pretty big flop. It had a 40% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, although the audience seems to like it with an 86% audience score. Estimated about a $98 million return on the first weekend, which is actually short of the $120 million that Warner Bros. Expected it to make. All of this is very short of their $300 million budget that went into the movie. And now a new segment, which I will be calling A Brief History of Battlefront 2. How did we get here? Battlefront 2 was released this week on November 17th to rage reviews. So let's take a look back at how we got to where we are at this point based on what information we had earlier on in the years. So it all kind of started in April of 2017 when the developers of Battlefront 2 said, hey, look, we're not going to have a season pass. And then almost immediately, EA took that statement down and said, well, we haven't quite discussed what our season pass is going to look like. And then at E3 of 2017, EA announces that there's not going to be any paid DLC for Battlefront 2. But instead, there is going to be microtransactions, which is kind of the bane of what gamers like to hear. The beta was released on October 4th. Loot boxes were shown in full force. You can use these loot boxes to get specific upgrades for your character, and in these loot boxes are what they call crystals, and crystals you can use to buy upgrades that make your character stronger or faster or regenerate health more or shoot straighter, things like that. With these crystals that come in the loot boxes, you can also spend real money, US dollars, Japanese yen, francs, whatever you want to buy these. So this rose to the conclusion that not only are there microtransactions in this game, but you can use real money to buy additional weapons and upgrades that will make your character stronger and faster. People came to the conclusion that Battlefront 2 is pay to win, even with a $60 price point already. Knowing that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is pay to win, there was a loot box outrage. The fans were not happy. Addressing the outrage, EA removes the most powerful unlocks from the loot crates. So now you can spend as much money as you want on these loot crates, but only can you use in-game progression to get the most powerful items. They thought this would balance the game. For people that have EA Early Access, they could play the game 5 days early. So they could play the game on November 9th, but they could only play for 10 hours max. So people hopped on that and found some interesting facts. One gamer estimated that it would take 40 hours of multiplayer gameplay to unlock the most popular characters, Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. He also did the math and said it would be about 4,500 hours or $2,100 estimated to unlock everything in the game. It's 2,100 actual real dollars, not in-game dollars. EA tried addressing the concerns of the consumers that were astounded by these conclusions, and they posted a comment on Reddit, which has now become the worst comment on Reddit in the history of the website, receiving 678,000 downvotes. This is now 30 times worse than the previously worst comment ever. Trying to backpedal even more, EA reduced the costs by 75%. So now instead of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader costing 60,000 credits, or whatever they're called, they now cost 15,000. Which means instead of 40 hours to unlock these, it's still 10 hours of in-game gameplay to unlock the most popular features of the Star Wars universe, Luke Skywalker, and of course, Darth Vader. EA and the developers of Star Wars Battlefront returned to Reddit to do an Ask Me Anything, which is where you can put your name in, and you say, hey, I'm this guy. You Reddit users can say, your Reddit users can ask me any question and I'll answer those questions for you. However, it was met with a lot of resistance from the Reddit community as this story has blown up proportionally. Everyone knows what is happening, so people came in floods to ask these questions, and the questions were answered with very PR speak and very, well, buy the game and find out, instead of really the answers that people were looking for. This is all happening within a matter of days. This all kind of started on November 9th. Because so much is happening, the Reddit comment and the backlash and all this stuff, it's being picked up by mainstream media outlets such as CNN, NPR, and the Wall Street Journal. Disney, who owns the rights to Star Wars on the upper level, is not happy with EA. So much so that the Interactive Media chairman, Pitaro, sent a message to EA CEO, Andrew Wilson, and said, hey, cut it out. So almost immediately, the EA CEO, Andrew Wilson, contacted the developers for Star Wars Battlefront and said, hey, look, we have to do something. So what they did was, literally hours before the game was released, they made an announcement that they are going to delay in-game purchases. You can no longer buy the crystals that will increase your chances of getting the higher level gear. But they didn't remove it completely. They just delayed it for a little bit of time. Literally hours before the game was released. Now keep in mind, news media outlets, gaming journalists have had this game for weeks to review and to prepare. But now, with the removal of loot crates and really the whole core of the game being removed, their reviews are all out of whack. So they have been going back retroactively and updating their reviews, usually with a lower score. So the game finally launched on November 17th to really lackluster appeal. People are saying that the campaign is really not at all what they expected from a $60 game, much less a Star Wars game. And from what I can tell, the campaign isn't even finished completely. You don't get to the final level. It's more of a to be continued, get the DLC later in the year and finish the story. And most of all, people are complaining about the progression system in the multiplayer. And this game is inherently a multiplayer game. Of course, this is riddled with the loot boxes that are still in the game, although the in-game purchases are no longer there. So this is currently where we stand with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Pretty awful scores, awful review scores. A lot of people are returning their money. There's a lot of backlash on EA, and it really makes you think. Last week I talked about how EA just bought up Respawn Entertainment for Titanfall, for another Star Wars game, and in the purchase of Respawn Entertainment, that company, they added a clause where the developers of the game would get bonuses based on their Metacritic scores. So if EA does this with another game, with Titanfall, with another Star Wars game, where literally hours before the game is released, everyone has to update their scores and has to update things and all their Metacritic scores are falling and plummeting, what does that mean for Respawn Entertainment and other companies that have the Metacritic score tied to their bonuses? So that's really it for this week. We'll kind of keep tabs on what's happening around the video game sphere for the next couple days, for next week. Of course, another episode next week. Subscribe and come back to see that episode. Thanks for watching. You can find us on Twitter at UPGamersPodcast or email us at underpaidgamerspodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you have any topic ideas, things like that. If you just want to chat, go ahead, shoot us a quick text or a quick tweet or a quick email. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.